So these are in response to people saying things like, I'm not happy with my mindfulness practice, or I'm only happy with the first couple of minutes of it, or I couldn't be bothered doing a mindfulness practice, or I was too tired or something for it. The implication under a lot of these objections that we might have to doing a mindfulness practice is some kind of expectation of what the mindfulness practice will be like or should be like, and a comparison of the actual to that. And most people, of course, they want their mindfulness practice to be quiet, calm, thought-free, blissful, non-dual. And when it's not, that discrepancy between expected and actual creates a kind of negative experience towards the whole practice. And so we tend to put it off next time. We're creating these negative associations. So there's two ways that I want to address this. The first is to gamify it. So the purpose of describing it this way is to help us illustrate what we're actually doing in a mindfulness practice. Just imagine that you have a log, and your job in this game is to stand on the log and see how long you can last until you fall off. And it's pretty easy, so try it with your eyes closed. It's much more difficult. And then it's got someone at the bottom giving it a shake. So you've got this wiggly log that you're trying to balance on. That's the game. That's the whole game. See how long you can balance until you fall off. And when you fall off, what do? Get back on. And you get 3 strikes perhaps. This is how we can approach our mindfulness practice. It's like a game. I place my attention on something, or at least I intend to, that's the breath, and I stay on the breath, gently, calmly, just balancing, until I fall off and get involved or captured by another thought flow, and then when I realize that, I get back on the breath. So bringing this kind of game approach or gamified approach to the mindfulness practice can help to dispel some of the expectations that almost inevitably will creep in and start to create a negative association with maintaining a consistent practice. So you can think of your mindfulness as being like a game. You know the whole point of the game is to fall off and then get back on, rather than being so interested in staying on the breath that when you fall off it, there's a sense of frustration or disappointment. It's not as comfortable or as good as I'd like it to be all the way through. The second way of looking at a mindfulness practice that can be useful is, rather than timing your practice, is to give it a duration in another way. So instead what you can do is measure not so much time, but rather you're measuring thought capture, or you're measuring your slip into involvement. The thought capture that we're talking about is the whole feature of a mindfulness practice. So I'll just briefly touch on it. We sit for the practice. There is a target that we intend to hold or to observe, usually the breath, and we observe it for some time, and then we slip off and we forget that we're actually practicing and we're lost in some other thought. And then we suddenly realize, oh yeah, hang on, I'm doing mindfulness, back to the breath. It's that moment of thought capture that we're measuring. So take 3 objects, maybe 3 coins, 3 buttons, whatever it is, place them in front of you and sit for your mindfulness practice. Let's say you are using the breath as your target. Sit with the breath. When you realize that you have slipped off the breath and there's been that thought capture, open your eyes, take one of the objects and place it to the right. That's one. And just make a mental note of the thought that captured you. What was it about? Then go back to the practice. The next time you get captured, take another of those buttons, move it to the side, back in. Third time you get captured, third button, 3 strikes, the practice is over. So what this is doing is, rather than having an expectation of reaching a certain time, you're limiting your practice to that involvement. So you know you're going to get 3 of those thought capture moments, and then the practice is over. So I'm not saying avoid or stop having timed practices. I'm just simply saying that a practice like this can also be worked into your schedule so that you don't have this constant feature of having to reach some target.